Many of us compartmentalize our lives. We have our family life, our work life, and our life with friends. And for many people, those different lives don't intermingle. Well, on this episode of the Intersection podcast, we'll try to break down some of those walls as you get a peek inside the life of UTC's leader, that would be me. Hello everyone and welcome. I'm UTC President and CEO Rusty Williams, and thank you for joining us today on this edition of the UTC podcast that we call The Intersection, which is sponsored by Anterix and Belden. We call it The Intersection because UTC and its members sit at the intersection of technology and the delivery of reliable and cost-effective utility services. On today's episode, it'll be a little different. I'll be talking with my two daughters, Brooke Hurst and Caitlin Jackson, and we'll be talking about life in the Williams household. In addition, they have a connection to UTC over their lifetime, and we'll explore that just a little bit as well. I hope to still be employed by the time we get to the end of this episode, so hang around and we'll see what happens. Brooke, Caitlin, thanks for agreeing to do this episode, this podcast with me. Not sure what your motivation is, but we'll see what happens. All right, thanks for being here. Guys, thanks for being here on the podcast with us.
Thank you for asking us to.
Thank you for trusting us.
Very
We'll see if you regret that.
I may. Well, for people that don't know you two, let's get a little bit of background. So let's tell us a little bit about yourself, just a little bit about your family, a little bit about your work life, and that way we'll set the stage for the rest of the conversation. Brooke, you're the oldest, so why don't you go ahead and start?
That's my dad outing me as the oldest. I'm Brooke. I am 39 years old. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I live here with my husband, Michael, and our two boys, Russell, named after my dad, and Brooke Schreider. They're 7 and 5. We live at the baseball field right now, the football fields, all the sports that we missed in our household of girls growing up.
I did have a chance to get to the ball fields. It just wasn't you guys playing, right? You guys were cheering or whatever it is you did, dancing and those kinds of things. But we did get to go to the ball field a little bit. Caitlin, how about you?
Yes, I'm Caitlin. I'm 36. My husband, Drew, and I, we also live here in Birmingham. We have 3 kiddos. They are, Eli's 8, Waylon's 6, and Wilder is 4. I am a civil engineer. I work for a firm based in New Mexico. I've worked for them for about 10 years now doing civil site design work.
Brooke, I think I cut you off before you told us about what you do. What do you do for a living?
It's all right. I am gainfully employed, thankfully. I studied journalism and theater in school. I was the black sheep of the family that did not go into engineering. But I worked in advertising for 13 and a half years for General Motors. And this year, my midlife crisis happened, and I decided to change career paths. And now I work in trade show and expo event planning. So my dad and I's paths do cross, even though I didn't end up being an engineer.
Yeah, man, it's a different world when you're putting these shows together. You talked to Carnell. I think you may have even talked to Carnell at one point. And that's a fun thing to do. Challenging, hard work, but it's fun to do as well. So one engineer, one creative, and so that's where we're starting from here. And by the way, Eli, the oldest of the grandchildren, is a female Eli. Yes. It's short for Elizabeth.
Yeah, we had 5 kids in 5 years. They begged for grandkids, and we just kept them coming.
All right, let's pull the curtain back just a little bit for the listeners and find out what it's like from your point of view, you two's point of view, growing up in the Williams household. I don't know if I want to hear all you've got to say, but childhood, teenage years, college years, post-college, whatever kind of thoughts you have about growing up in the Williams household. What do you think? What do you remember about those years? Kate, we'll start with you.
Like childhood, I was more so of the tomboy. I was never made to feel like I needed.
You were on the soccer field. There was one of us on a field.
That's true.
Softball, and Brooke and I both danced our whole lives, but so Dad and I did a lot of sporting things together, and you hear all these jokes and see memes about doing math at the dinner
That
table.
was going to be my line. That was going to be my line.
That was maybe not the case for Dad and I, because I'm more mathematically inclined. So we kind of just worked well together because our brains are more similarly wired than Dad and Brooks are.
Yep.
So.
Once it gets to long division, I am out.
So the meme about, sitting at the kitchen table trying to do math and tears flowing,
Yep.
that did happen, right?
Yep. My brain does not work like an engineer's brain, and neither one of us could figure out why.
So the thing I remember about those years, I remember a lot of things about it, but I wish I knew how many dance recitals, beauty pageants,
Yep.
cheerleading, competitions, those kind of things. But I did coach softball 1 year, and that was interesting because I would turn around and want to get on to the girls. And how old were you guys? 10, 11?
Yeah.
And they had no idea what was going on. They were fixing each other's hair, and if I ever yelled at anybody, which I rarely ever did, somebody ended up crying. So that was my one and only year coaching. But we did try that. Teenage years, anything you remember that you want to?
Well, we may not have spent a whole lot of time on sports fields, but you raised two daughters that know as much about football as most grown men do. We spent so much of our time at Alabama football games. We used to go to Alabama games when they were at Legion Field in Birmingham. And then we followed to Tuscaloosa, and that football is the one big thing with our family that we still celebrate. We still cheer on the Tide. That really is one thing from childhood that I have carried through memories to adulthood.
All right, and again, I did survive. The 3 females in the house, especially those teenage years.
Beauty pageants were
Yeah, I didn't.
the breaking point.
I didn't care too much for the beauty pageants, but I will say, and Yvette is sitting here while we're doing this. My wife, Yvette, for those of you that don't know. So growing up, when you guys were growing up, teenage years, 3 females, there's a lot of estrogen in the house and a lot of emotion, and a business travel, seemed to help with that a little bit.
I was about to say you traveled a lot.
I have always said that a certain amount of business travel is good for a marriage, but that was a challenge as well. So what you were going to say? One more thing,
Yeah,
Brooke?
one memory I have of teenage years is pageants. People probably don't know that you ran the sound for pageants, and anything around church or school events, you were the sound guy. And you were running sound at a pageant my senior year, and both of us were in this said pageant. And you found out that I won the pageant before anybody else because you were in a room getting snacks that you weren't supposed to be in. And they were telling the winners, and so you knew it was me before anybody else. That's a memory I have too.
Yeah, I did try to signal your mom during that, but I don't think I ever did. So that was a good time. I found out another time that Caitlin didn't win, and that didn't go well either. But all in all, I would say, good childhood, good suburban life, in a small town, growing up. So I think overall, pretty good. That's Rusty's opinion. Now, you never know, right? So let me ask you this. So, when we do work, I mentioned earlier how we compartmentalize our lives. You've got the work person and the home person and the social person, and a lot of times those crowds don't mix together. When you think about the work crowd I have now, and some of them, you guys have met a handful of them through the years. What is something that about me, about Rusty, that you think everybody else might be interested in knowing, but be surprised when they found out about it?
That your grandkids call you Grumps. That is the name that you were given from the beginning because you tend to be a little grumpy.
It started as a joke, then it stuck.
Yeah.
And now he's just Grumps.
Yeah, when I heard it, I agreed to it just to aggravate people. Just
Your mother.
my mom and Yvette both. Yeah, okay. So I'm Grumps, not Grumpy, but Grumps. Okay. Anything else y'all think of?
That you appreciate and enjoy the arts, like musical theater. You can acknowledge dancing. You've been to enough dance recitals. You can look at something and say, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good," or not the best I've ever seen. But part of it through exposure, and part of it through you enjoy going to those things also.
Not many engineers are as good at engineering as you are, and also a public speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, back to the dancing comment. I do. We have gone to things, with events, programs, different things, over the last several years. And I'll look at Yvette and go, "Oh, that dancing is really bad." People doing the productions. I at least know enough to know what's good and what's. I have absolutely zero ability in dancing. I'm not sure where you two got it from.
You even were a dance dad into college, because Caitlin and I were on dance team at our college together for 1 year together. So you were even a dance college dad.
All the cheering and dancing I thought was over with when you got out of high school, and lo and behold, you went to college and did the same thing. But that was good.
Now Eli is doing dance also, so he gets to go to her recitals.
So one more time at the baseball field.
It's different with the grandchild than it is the child. I that's one thing that I will say. It's the pressure's not as great.
You just have to show up.
That's right. Smile. That's it. What time do I have to be there? That's it. All right. So let me ask you about your lives. And we talked about growing up in a nice little small town, suburbia, kind of a classic U.S. kind of little town. And when you look back in those years, is there something that you would do differently? If you could go back, what is something that you would do differently if you had the chance?
So I turned 18 on my first day of college. So Brooke and I were always on the younger end, like for our quote-unquote grade.
We both moved when we were 17 to college.
And so I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life. It took me quite a few years to decide what I wanted to do with my life. And I think I was just kind of scared to try hard things, which ultimately ended up being engineering. But I kind of doubted my abilities, and maybe part of it was age. But to tell myself that it's okay and you should do hard things and challenge yourself.
You took my answer.
In whatever that may be, education or life experiences, like.
Yep. I agree 100%. If anybody is going to college or anybody is in high school trying to decide, quote unquote, what they want to be when they grow up, because we've been asked that question since we were tiny kids. I ask my kids that every year on the first day of school. And when you get to high school, you're supposed to know. When we were 16, 17, had no clue. If I could go back, I would tell myself, and anybody that's in college right now and doesn't know if they're not destined to be a doctor or a lawyer or even an engineer, if they're not completely sure what they want to do, find something that they're super interested in and study that in college and then make it into a career. Because if not, you're not going to be true to yourself, and that you may not be as happy as you could be, at least.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. You guys, I mentioned growing up in a small town. What's your opinion on the value or just the experience of growing up in a small town as opposed to growing up in a larger town where you were going to high school with, hundreds, couple thousand people in your graduating class, as opposed to you guys, which you had roughly 100 people in your graduating classes? What do you think's the good and the bad of being in a smaller rural area?
Opportunities is one. We didn't have very many arts programs for us to be in. We didn't have theater. We didn't have, if you wanted to do music, it was band. So there wasn't as many opportunities there. That would be my number one.
Yeah, there are pros and cons. I mean, I loved where we grew up, and we were able to do more on the side of opportunity. Like, kind of whatever we wanted to try out, we were able to do it.
Like a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, like we were able to test out different things if we wanted to. But on like the education side, like when I did decide to do engineering, I was in Calculus 1 at college, and that wasn't even offered at our high school. And most of my classmates were taking it for the second time, essentially. They're like, oh yeah, I had this in high school, and I'm just like trying to keep my head above water because I had not had that in high school. But there's pros and cons to each situation of the size of your community.
So you had more, for the things you could do or things that were offered, you had more opportunity, but there may not have been as many things offered.
Yeah,
that
it's limited in what your school is offering.
Same thing for college as well, because I went to a small Baptist college, and my freshman roommate said that our entering class at our college was smaller than her graduating class from high school. There were pros and cons to this as well. I had one class that had 3 people in it, which was so awesome. But also, there weren't as many opportunities there either. So there's always pros and cons of big fish, small pond, small fish, big pond.
All right, so we survived, right? We went through all those years. There were some days I didn't know if we were all going to survive.
Ever get out of college.
And there were some days that I wasn't sure if Caitlin was going to actually live through the night, much less through the years. Caitlin was my challenging child, just in case you hadn't figured that out yet. She'd like to test the limits. She's the one that likes to test the limits. But we all survived, right? And we're here today. You both are married. You're starting your own families. You've got successful careers. And the best part is, Yvette and I have 5 grandchildren. All right, so that's a good thing. So when we kind of bring this back to UTC a little bit, I don't know if you remember this or not. If you guys remember the some of the early days when I was involved with UTC, but you guys would go with me to some of these meetings we would go to, particularly the meetings around the Southeast. And there were some places, particularly if it was a fun place, right? If it was at the beach or near the beach or, other things. What's your early remembrance of UTC, or did you even know that all that was going on and you just was happy to be there?
I honestly found out today that my first Disney trip, by the way, my mother was 8 months pregnant, and now that I have been 8 months pregnant, seems absolutely insane to me. She was 8 months pregnant with my sister. I was turning 3, and UTC had a meeting around Disney, and we went then. And then the infamous trip of my life, we drove to the Grand Canyon when the meeting was in Arizona. We have stories from that trip that, again, y'all are crazy for taking 2 young kids across the country.
Yeah, we drove. We drove from Birmingham, and that was 2 days, 2 full days, and probably a part of another day. Went through your hometown, your first hometown as a married woman.
Yeah.
We did go to Carlsbad and ended up afterwards in Grand Canyon and other places. So, yeah, there was also meetings you guys probably don't remember. There were a couple of meetings like in Gulfport, Mississippi, where we went. And you guys, were excited about going to the beach until you got there and saw what the Mississippi beach was like. Not that it was a terrible beach, it was just not, the ocean that you were used to because of the barrier islands and other things. Pensacola one time, same thing, got to go to the beach. So you guys have been in and out, or around UTC, and as Brooke just described, Caitlin was before she was even born. So I don't know if you had any clue or if you even cared. You were just happy to be there, or what do you think?
No, I mean, second kid, I'm just like here for the good time. Maybe as we got older, we would talk about Mom would say, oh yeah, we were there for a UTC meeting. But at the time I had no idea. It's just like, yeah, let's go on a trip.
Yeah.
I mean, we may have been discussed, like, Dad has something here, so we're all going to go. But
We would tag along with some of your work trips, too.
True.
Especially to the beach.
We ever had to go to the beach or Orlando or any other place that you could drive in a reasonable amount of time. All right, so let's fast forward. You mentioned the Phoenix meeting and the Orlando meeting. So the year that I was the chairman of the board for UTC was in 2008 to 2009. So the 2009 conference was in Las Vegas. So, and again, how old were you guys in 2009?
I was 20 because Brooke couldn't go do anything because I couldn't go do anything because I wasn't 21
She was
yet.
like a couple of weeks shy of 21 and couldn't get in anywhere.
Yeah.
So that meant I was 24.
Okay, so that was enough. You kind of figured out what was going on. You might not have cared, you just wanted to go to Vegas, but you kind of.
We knew you were like the chairman and like that it was a bigger year for the whole UTC.
We were going to get to watch you give speeches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't know everything else. That was probably the first time that I sat in on your public speaking, any sort of engagement, and tried to honestly understand what you were speaking about. It had never been confirmed more to me that I was not destined to be an engineer because you were talking about windmill energy and I wanted to understand it so bad because it's such a cool concept, but my brain couldn't connect the dots.
All right, so
That was
Caitlin.
a transformative trip for Caitlin.
Well, that's what I was going to say. She has an interesting tale
Yeah.
coming out of that meeting.
So I was at Sanford on my second major attempt of what I was studying at Sanford.
Just two?
I know, I was about to say, I'm not sure about that.
Well, I was undeclared for a full year. Interior design, elementary education. And at the conference,
You understood the windmill energy.
yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I was like, hey, this kind of makes sense. And I kind of, like, Mom and Brooke were like, oh my God. And I was like, this is kind of cool. What's wrong here? So after that conference, I had to go for the third time to talk to Dad about wanting to change my major. And I ended up switching to engineering. And at Sanford, they offered a dual degree program because they didn't specifically have an engineering program. So then I would go to UAB for my engineering. But on that trip, kind of witnessing it all is and sitting in on the different meetings is what kind of pushed me to make that change to engineering.
So that day she declared she wanted to be the president of UTC that day.
But I picked the wrong field of engineering to do that.
So I will tell you my view of that story from the dad's point of view. Yes, you had changed your major several times, and that was a challenge for Dad.
Financially.
And then we went to that meeting and we got back, and your mom one day, not long after we got back, said, "Hey, you need to talk to Caitlin." I went, "Oh crap!"
What this time?
She said, "No. You need to talk to her." And that's when you were telling me that you wanted to, consider engineering for your major, and it was because of some of the things you heard while you were sitting there listening, because you felt like you had to, right? You went to Vegas, you had to listen to Dad talk a little bit, all of y'all, right? But it resonated. So you call that fate, you can call it divine intervention, you call it dumb luck, whatever you want to call it, but that did, have some, influence, some impact on, Caitlin's life long term.
Well, and then I fell in love with the party portion of it, so I just want to plan the event side of it. So.
Yeah. Well, you never know, and when you allow yourselves, and this is kind of part of the message I want to give through this, is don't be afraid to mix the different parts of your life. Right? If you got family that you keep completely separate from your work, if I'd have been that way, then, this would have never happened.
And I never would have met my husband.
And oh yeah, tell the rest of that story.
Yeah, my husband and I met in Calculus 3, a super romantic setting for a love story. But that's where he and I met in class one summer for Calculus 3. So Drew and I may not have ever met otherwise.
There you go. Well, after all these years, that was in 2009. Here we are, 15 years later, 16 years later, and I've had the opportunity now to lead UTC, to, as you said, be the president of UTC. When you think about the people on staff at UTC, having grown up in the family with me specifically, then what kind of advice do you have if you were able to if you could come to a staff meeting, a UTC staff meeting, and give the staff some advice? What kind of advice would you give them on how to deal with Rusty?
Well, I got to meet Cornell. I've met Cornell a few times, and you talk about crossing paths. When I went on my first work trip of my new job this year, it was for 10 days. This is the first time I was leaving my kids for that long period of time. And my event just so happened to be in Anaheim, California, where Cornell lives, and he contacted me, told me if I needed anything to contact him and let him know. And that really meant a lot to me because I haven't seen him in years. But since you are crossing over family with business, it helps relationships grow. And working in advertising for so long and now in events, when I was interviewing for my now current job, I just kept saying that relationships are key. No matter what business you're in, if you don't have relationships with your clients, with the people you're trying to meet, that you don't have anything. And if you can't cross over the empathy and the relationship aspect of work, it's just very hard to build trust and relationships, period.
Okay. Well, that's pretty deep. I appreciate that. Kate?
I feel like UTC is an interesting mix of marketing and engineering based, obviously technology, but some engineers may not be the most social, especially electrical engineers. This is dad's field. I am one of the more social engineers that I've been around in school and in my career, but Dad is also in the same way. Like, he enjoys getting to know people and forming relationships and talking and spending time. And like some industries, kind of like what you're saying, it's easy to separate it because maybe some people aren't as social and they just want to work and they want to leave and be done talking to people for the day. Yeah. But that's not the case for Dad. And I feel like maybe a lot of people at UTC, that's why they're involved with UTC, is because they want to do more than just work and go home.
Remote work, period. You have to put in the work these days to create the work relationships that you used to could make seeing everyone for 8 hours a day. So it's intentional now. You have to be intentional.
So where did I get the ability to talk? Where do you think I got that ability?
Your dad. Your dad. Our granddaddy, we called him the mayor of wherever he was. You get that from him.
He found somebody to talk to regardless of where and what, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, we all have our examples and we learn. All right, so as we kind of get close to the end here, I just ask you for advice for the staff. How about advice for me? You guys got any advice for me as I'm kind of working through, this last, what I have been calling a career topper opportunity here. It's hard to believe I've been there a year and a half already. But any advice for me as I try to be successful in this job?
I don't know advice. You're the professional, and we all learn from you. Like admiration kind of comes to mind because, like you said, this is a different field than what you had done previously. More less engineering design than what your career had been up until the last few years. I feel like you were brave and excited to take the change and take on the new role, and I feel like that's something encouraging. Brooke was talking about she kind of changed her career paths too, and not to make you feel old, but like you're a good example of it's never too late to like make a change or to try something new for your career or just to make yourself happy.
Yeah, this is a dream job for you, and we know that, and we're just happy that you got the opportunity and proud of you for sticking with it. You've been a member of UTC since I was born, I guess. So just the commitment is to be admired. But yeah, patience. That's what I always tell you, is just patience.
That's one of my strong suits.
Yeah.
Patience.
That's
Right.
why you're called Grumps.
I don't remember those patients at the dinner table when we were doing math homework.
I explained that to you one time already.
Why don't you understand it?
It's simple. I just explained that to you. Yeah, the advice I kind of give myself in this job is don't screw it up.
Well, we're all going to screw it up a little bit.
We let people that are there that know what to do it, and chime in where you need to chime in. But well, it looks like that's our time for today. Dadgummit. I do appreciate you guys, taking a little bit of time. I know you guys are busy. As you said, you've got families and all, but I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to me about this stuff, and hopefully people find it interesting. But, regardless of what all we went through, good, bad, we've gone through a lot through the years. But your mom and I are proud of you and, what you've accomplished both personally and professionally. And I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today.
Yeah, our husbands had to do bath time tonight, so it was a win-win.
Yeah, thanks for asking us to do it. It's a fun idea.
All right. Well, as we wrap up this episode of the Intersection Podcast, which is sponsored by Anterix and Belden, I want to encourage everyone to not be afraid to mix a little family with a little work, with a little fun. It makes you human, and each part of your life can help the people you come in contact with. Sometimes it's your work life, sometimes it's your family life, sometimes it's your social life. But these strong relationships that both of you just mentioned as we were wrapping up are necessary to be successful wherever you are, whether that's at work or at home or with friends. Well, everyone, thanks again for listening. I hope to see you again on a future episode. And I hope you have a great day.
In the dynamic world of private LTE networks for utilities, it's all about a collective approach toward grid modernization solutions. Together with our 100-plus member ecosystem and the Utility Strategic Advisory Board, we're de-risking private LTE investments. We're not just providing solutions, we're pioneering a cleaner, safer, more affordable, and secure energy future through 900 megahertz powered private LTE networks. By joining us, you're part of a force driving innovation, accelerating returns, and future-proofing the entire ecosystem. It's more than spectrum. It's about evolving together. Don't miss out. Embrace the power of collective action, ensuring a sustainable utility private LTE evolution.
To learn more, visit Anterix.com.
Behind every modern grid is a quiet force, securing networks, transporting data, enabling real-time response. That force? Belden. From substations to the edge, we're the backbone that keeps your grid strong, stable, and ready for what's next. Belden, your partner in power. Learn more at to.belden.com/energy.